my grandparents had dementia, and if you asked them to account for their actions in the past, they were like children. They didn't really know who anybody was. My grandma and granddad, they taught me the importance of hard work, but also giving something back. They both worked in the shoe factories, and they both worked incredibly hard in often quite difficult conditions. Although they didn't have a huge amount themselves, they always recognised that there were people less fortunate than them, and they gave a lot of their time to support people less fortunate. They worshipped here at the Citadel of the Salvation Army here in Kettering. This is a room I've been into many times, but I also volunteered here in my school holidays in the Salvation Army charity shop. My sister and me during holidays would help out on the cash register here or arranging things in the shop. And we did that because it was what my grandparents did. And it instilled in me that sense of purpose, of giving something back, of community and solidarity, something that very much I take in with me today into the work that I do in the public service.
Rachel Reeves has never shied away from invoking her personal history in politics. Time and again, she speaks of her grandparents' struggles with dementia, the strength of her family, and how the Salvation Army's support shaped her values. It's a familiar script, one designed to project empathy, to frame herself as a politician shaped by compassion and lived experience. And yet, the policies tell a different story. This week, Reeves backed measures that effectively tighten the noose around the most vulnerable in society. Sick and disabled people who rely on welfare, not out of choice, but out of necessity, stripping back support in the name of fiscal responsibility. Reeves has sent a clear message. Sentiment is cheap, and suffering is a line item to be slashed. For a Labour politician, let alone one who positions herself as the moral counterweight to conservative cruelty, this is more than disappointing. It is a betrayal. Reeves isn't just failing the people her party claims to champion. She's weaponizing the language of care while dismantling the structures that provide it. Her justification, economic prudence, the supposed need to get tough on welfare. But Reeves is not targeting tax avoiders, offshore wealth, or corporate loopholes. She's coming for the bedridden, the mentally ill, the terminally unwell. And in doing so, she's echoing the same rhetoric we've heard from Tory chancellors for over a decade. That disability is suspect. That hardship must be policed. Let's be clear. This isn't just policy. It's ideology. And it reeks of political cowardice. Of a Labour leadership desperate to appear credible to right-wing tabloids and swing voters, even if it means abandoning the very people who need them most. Rachel Reeves may speak movingly about her grandparents. But if they were alive today, under her policies, would they be met with compassion or with suspicion, sanctions, and spreadsheets? Labour promised a new dawn, but with Reeves at the economic helm, it's looking a lot like the same old storm.
Who does the business? The National Audit Office has found that putting a migrant in a hotel costs 145 quid a night. Now, I could get a hotel for less than 145 quid a night. So what hotels are they going to? What are they actually paying for? Or how much are we being ripped off as taxpayers in all of this? I mean, we'll never get anywhere with this migrant crisis unless somebody gets tough and somebody basically breaks ranks on this. It's not going to happen under this government, is it?
Well, it's really, when the media, in inverted commas, and I think people sometimes when they watch, they feel as though, oh, they're kind of making a big deal of this, or they kind of amping it up a little bit. But I was 5.5 million a day.
A day, that's billions a year.
That is genuinely shocking. There's like no hyperbole there. And it has got, I mean, look, the Conservatives left it in a right old mess, so I won't, but it has got worse.
Yeah.
I think it's another 8,000 more.
To the future, Oscar. Okay, 1.5 million homes have been promised to be built in England by 2029. But the National Audit Office are saying this is okay because it'll help to reduce the use of hotels for asylum seekers. But that's not what these homes were intended for.
No, I mean, when you read it out like that, it's funny if you just take a step back and you zoom out a little bit. When you read that out, I mean, that will be so angering to the general public. and, as the government would call them, voters. And honestly, if they don't right that wrong, because it talks to something, when we talk about, immigration and housing, and it talks to fairness, and it talks to people who've put in a lot into society, and they've worked and worked and worked, and they've put in, and they don't get anything out. I mean, honestly, if that balance doesn't tip, and we stop paying 5.5 million quid a day, then that, alongside a couple of other issues, maybe not in isolation, there won't be another Labour government next time around. I don't think. I think it's that acute. I really do.
As the Labour government finds its feet in Westminster, a familiar storm is gathering. Rising immigration numbers, spiraling housing costs, and a public increasingly skeptical of big promises with little delivery. Nowhere is this more starkly illustrated than in the ongoing crisis surrounding the housing of asylum seekers in hotels, a short-term fix that is becoming an expensive symbol of long-term failure. Recent figures reveal that the UK taxpayer is footing an ever-growing bill to accommodate asylum seekers in temporary hotel accommodation, with the National Audit Office warning of both fiscal unsustainability and policy incoherence. Critics say it's not just inefficient, it's unfair. While thousands of British families languish on social housing waiting lists and face rising rents, millions of pounds are being poured into hotel chains, offering no permanent solution and little dignity to the people affected. Labour has responded with the familiar balm of long-term ambition. The government has pledged to build 1.5 million new homes in England by 2029, a lofty goal intended to reduce pressure on the housing system and, by extension, reduce reliance on hotels for asylum accommodation. But the numbers raise more questions than answers. Where will these homes be built? Who will build them? And how will Labour overcome the chronic bottlenecks in planning, funding, and public trust? Public figures like broadcaster Eamonn Holmes have voiced what many ordinary voters are thinking, that Labour, for all its rhetorical flourishes, seems ill, equipped to deal with the realities of the migrant crisis. They talk, they promise, but nothing ever seems to change, Holmes said bluntly, echoing a growing chorus of disillusionment from both sides of the political spectrum. What's clear is that this crisis, both of migration and of housing, cannot be solved with announcements alone. Labour must confront the structural rot in Britain's asylum system, a backlog of over 100,000 undecided cases, a chronic underinvestment in local authority housing, and a failure to offer a coherent national plan for integration or dispersal. The optics are damaging. For every hotel used to house asylum seekers, there's a news cycle ready to inflame tensions and push communities to the brink. And while Labour may decry the toxic tone of right-wing media, it's their own lack of credible delivery that leaves the door open to it. This government cannot afford to govern by aspiration alone. The cost of delay, economic, social, and political, is already mounting. If Labour wants to prove Eamonn Holmes and others wrong, it needs to stop managing headlines and start delivering homes. Thanks for watching. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read everyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a video. Want to keep the conversation going? Join the Telegram group? Links in the description.